So let's welcome you all to the Demystifying the Loss of Karma topic. So every program before we start, we always start with a small prarthana. So let's start this wonderful talk with a very nice prarthana. And this prarthana has been authored by none other than the Guru of all Gurus, Maharishi Vedavyas. Dhyana Moolam Gurur Murti Puja Moolam Gurur Padam Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam Moksha Moolam Gurur Kripa Dhyana Moolam Gurur Murti. The root of my meditation is the image of my Guru. Puja Moolam Gurur Padam. The root of my worship is my Guru's feet. Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam. The root of my mantra is my own Guru's words. Moksha Moolam Gurur Kripa. The root of my salvation is my Guru's grace. So this parampara, which you are looking on the screen right now, is a Guru Sishya parampara coming from Dakshinamurti all the way to Adi Shankaracharya and to Swami Chinmayananda. I've been an ardent disciple or a follower of Swami Chinmayananda from early teenage years. And most of the presentation which you're going to see today is more or less his own thoughts and Swami Chinmayananda's disciples, what they have preached. So what all I'm doing right now is all his works, and I'm just trying to repeat them in whatever way I have assimilated in the last few decades. So if there is any omissions or errors, please do point out to me so that I can correct myself. And if there's any room for improvement, please do let me know as well. So with your kind blessings, we will start the talk. And let's go to the first slide is about Lord Buddha. And this has been circulating vast in the WhatsApp groups and all the social media. And if you look very, very closely to it, there are a couple of 3 or 4 sentences which stands apart. The first one, it says, time and circumstances can change at any time. Then after some time, it also tells you, right, that you may be powerful today, but remember, time is more powerful than you. Then at the very last sentence, it talks says, be good and do good. So when you see all this stuff, and let's see how karma gets connected with all the stuff. So let's move on to the next slide because we'll come back to this slide at the very end of the presentation. So when we hear the word karma and when we try to look into what the meaning of it is from any dictionary, the 3 main meanings that comes are shown on your left hand side of the screen, which tells that this is a moral law. This is an universal law which has 2 aspects to it. One is the action reaction part to it and the cause and effect part to it. And some of those English definition talks about destiny or fate also associated with karma. And the English definition in some dictionaries also goes on and tells you what goes around comes around. So that is how the Western world looks into it. And we will see how the Eastern world looks at it too. So when you look at the Eastern world, when you look at word karma, you see the endless knot there. The knot which you see on your right hand side is called the endless knot because it does not have a beginning, nor does it have an end. It's an endless knot. It's an infinite knot, which symbolizes the infinity in it. It also symbolizes the samsara, the punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, which is nothing but innumerable, countless, infinite deaths and births which we take. And it also shows what goes around comes around. So that is a beautiful significance of the endless knot being shown in some of those Advaitic Vedantic philosophies and also in Buddhism as well. So I just thought maybe I'll just share that with you. So karma, that's the topic of the day today. And let's see how we can go ahead and define it a little bit much more simpler because we said karma is nothing but an universal law And this universal law has two parts, or can be described in two parts. One is the action reaction part, and the second one is the cause and effect. So as a child, right, we must have all played with this wonderful gadget where you just drop one ball, it comes and hits a series of ball, and another ball shoots up. If you use two balls, the other two balls shoots up. And this is one of the things when we were a child, when we were a child, our science teacher used to describe to us to teach us the Newton's law of motion, especially the third law of motion, where the teacher would say every action has got an equal and opposite reaction. So this is a first part of the universality of the karma that the Vedantic scriptures state. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So whenever we exhibit a negative force, it could be in thought, it could be in word, or it could be in action. This negative energy will reverberate and it will come back to us. It may come back instantaneously, as you see in some viral YouTube or TikTok videos, like the accidents happening when somebody does something funny, or it could come back after a few years, or it could come back and haunt us after a couple of births and deaths. That's what we call as Janma. So we will be looking into those kind of aspects into much more detail as we go. So even though we keep talking about a few topics here and there, the subsequent topics which I'll be presenting in the slide will be addressing and linking each and every basic principle to give it a much more a realistic view and to back up the information which we are presenting. So if you have any questions, please collect them or jot it down. At the very end of the presentation, we will try to look at the questions, and if it is something which I can answer, I will share it, or if not, I will take those questions and find an answer for you. So the universal law has two parts, action and reaction, the one which we just looked at, and the second one, this is the cause and effect. Every effect will have a cause, and whenever there is a cause, there will always be an effect. That's what Advaitic Vedantic philosophy keeps reminding us innumerable times. And it also tells us the intent and the actions of an individual will influence the future of that individual. That is the cause and effect theory, so which we will go back and look at it much more greater detail. So when we hear the word karma, right, there's quite a lot of facts and myths that pop up in our mind. We see a lot of stories and a lot of people come up with their own theories, and people who are not exposed to the Sanatanic dharmic philosophy, especially people who try to preach other religions, when they try to criticize Sanatana Dharma without knowing the in-depth meaning or the logic or the reasoning behind it, will come up with sort of questions, and they will bombard us with questions. So once we don't know the answers for these questions, we get completely confused. We are totally perplexed and we don't know how to answer them. So some of these questions which we typically see are, why do innocent people suffer? Because I know somebody so and so who's very good, wonder why he's suffering all this time. It doesn't make any logic. It doesn't have any sense. Why is this particular person suffering? Then the other question which we see every day is, why is God permitting evil? There are so many evil people in this world and they are doing so much of notorious stuff. ഈ പന പോലെ വളർത്തുന്നു ശത്രുക്കളെ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് there is a saying in Malayalam saying that all these enemies and all the evil people, they are not dying. They're just multiplying and they're growing stronger every day. Why is it happening? Is the God helpless? Will the God ever going to act? Or will the God choose not to act? Is God cruel? Or is he merely indifferent? So these are all the questions which we get, and we need to have a look at, see what are the facts and what are the myths. Where is the truth in between? How do we need to know? So when we looked at these kind of questions, the things which we need to keep in mind, we should not get lost in the maze as we see on the screen. Instead, we need to know the fundamental and the important concept that our Vedas are stipulating, because we are a Vedic religion and Vedas, our Shrutis, and those are all the main documents which we have in our Vedic karmas. Then we need to also look into the cycle of life. It's a cyclical births and deaths that's happening in our Hinduism philosophy, which is very self-governing, which is very infinitely fair. It treats everyone equal, and it has got a lot of answers to come up with. So with that note, let's go on and to see. So prior to we see it, let's try to debunk a few myths. Because each time when you see something about karma, people would say, எல்லாம் என்னுடைய தலைவிதி வந்திருக்கு பாரு அப்படிம்பாங்க. இல்லாட்டி somebody will say, no, everything is fate. See what's happening. There's nothing. Everything is being predestined. It's like a fatalistic viewpoint. And in fatalistic viewpoint, what typically happens is, every people think that every event in life has been fixed in advance by some unknown source. And we are just mere pawns and we are just playing in these events. So when we look that from a Sanatanic dharmic perspective, and when we relate that to our law of karma, our religion does not advocate fatalism. Because in fatalistic thinking, there is no place for free will. But in the law of karma, there is a room for free will. So law of karma is not fatalistic. And law of karma always gives an opportunity for every individual to shape their future and to liberate themselves from the births and deaths cycle, the law of samsara, or the punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So when this happens, that basically means that there is a free will there which really acts on it. And in theory, the fatalistic theory does not hold good. And also, when you look into it, quite a lot of people use fate and destiny in a synonymous manner. They keep mixing these words, fate and destiny. So basically, fate is something what you're given, and destiny is what you make out of it. So there's two different meanings. So we cannot mix both words at the same time, and there is a very subtle difference between these two words. So I just wanted to show that to you, the subtle difference between fate and destiny. Fate is what you're given. Destiny is what you make out of it. So with that idea in mind, whenever we are going down, when we are drowning ourselves in sorrow, when we are just going down and down the whirlpool without any objective or with any thrust or any impetus to come up, we should remember, right? Karma is not fate. Fate is predetermined for us by some forces other than us. Whereas the law of karma is not so. So according to Vedantic karma theory, we create our own fate. So let's bust this fact saying that karma is not fate, because we create our own fate. And similarly, when we come into destiny, our Sanatanic Dharma philosophy clearly states your destiny is in your own hands, and you are responsible for every action you do. So it's giving the complete honest to us. It's giving the complete independence to us on how we need to look at our own actions and thoughts. And we determine the destiny. We create our destiny. So these are the two subtle differences which I want to make sure that we all agree. Then the concept of free will comes, right? So when the concept of free will comes, you see those wonderful cows standing there grazing on the grass, and it has got a nice cord tied to a peg to its neck. So Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, whenever he talks about the concept of free will, he comes up with the example of this cow, grazing cow, and he says, look at the cord that's been tied to the thread. So the cow goes around the peg using this particular cord as a radius, and it starts to graze the grass. But whenever the grass is done, the cow makes a sound or it moves its head twitching, so that the owner of the cow would realize that there's no more grass left for the cow to graze, and he will loosen up the thread and add more thread. So each time it loosens up and adds it, the cow gets a much more wider area to graze. So that is the effect of free will in karma. Each time when we try to strive for something better, so when we try to earn for something better, we always have this luxury or the God-given right to extend it. And it gives an example of this wonderful concept of free will. Then the easiest way to link it is what is destiny is being connected to prarabdha. And what is free will is connected to Purushartham. So this is how these two concepts are getting tied in the karmic theory. Destiny is connected to Prarabdham and the free will is connected to Purushartham. In the next couple of slides, we will go and look at how the whole Prarabdham and the Purushartham acts with destiny and free will there. So when we look at the millions and millions of species we have in this wonderful world, Srimad Bhagavatam clearly states that there are 8.4 million species in the world. And this was written to us, this was authored to us by Maharishi Vedavyas a long time back, like 10,000 years back, more than 10,000 years back. And quite a lot of people did not even believe that we had 8.4 million species. Because according to the latest count, it's close to 1.4 million species they have ever tabulated or accounted for. And so what happened was the University of Hawaii did a research a couple of years back. They were looking at all the species they have accounted for in their system GNA Phyllis category to see how much they are accounted for so long. And with the extrapolations and with what we know, what we don't know, and what we don't know, what we don't know. So they were trying to look and extrapolate how many more species would be there in the world. They came to account a probabilistic count of 8.6 million species. Then when you look at the number the rishis of India came up with thousands and thousands of years back, they came up with a number of 8.4 million species. And how are these 8.4 million species connected with the talk? So when we look at the chart here, when you see the human being, the man or the woman on the top from a Purusharthic perspective, and all the animals below it, if starting from the microcellular organisms to all the aquatic animals, the amphibians, the reptiles, the mammals, and the mammals with much more evolved mind processing. We are on the top. And that is one of the reasons our scriptures state that the human birth is not easy to achieve. It took billions and billions of years for us to reach here from a unicellular organism. And that is how we have this most powerful statement saying, Ahara Nidra Bhayam Maitunam Cha Samanyam Etat Pashubir Narana. That basically means animals and men share the activities of eating, sleeping, mating, procreating, and defending. But the special property the human being possesses is the ability to engage in spiritual life with the aim of gaining Atmanjanam. So if you look at from that perspective, when we see what makes the human being special, it's our free will, the self-authority we have. The second and the main point is the ability for us to control the desires. And the third one is the intelligence to understand consequences of our actions. And when you look at from a conscious awareness perspective, you realize we are a lot different from the animals, because most of the animals are driven by the animalistic instinct, whereas we are not, because we are intelligent enough. We have the capacity to choose our responses and act based on it. So that clearly makes it a lot different. And that is how we stand quite apart on the top of the pyramid when we look at from a Purusharthic perspective. And we kept talking about samsara quite a few times. And you may wonder what samsara is. Samsara is basically nothing but bondage. The bondage that's associated with living in our life, to getting things done in our life. The running around which we do, as we very mostly call it, like we are like a hamster in a wheel. We are just running around, getting everything's done for our day-to-day life. And when the whole thing is ending, we die, and after a few years or few moments we are reborn again. So this particular bondage does not leave us. It's a cyclical bondage. It comes and haunts us every now and then. That's a cyclical way of samsara, the hamster in a wheel concept. So when we look at this purushartha, the one which we looked earlier, where human beings are on top of the food chain. And when we look at the samsara, the bondage, which is continuously haunting us, the Vedas clearly say that our human body is such well-designed instrument. It keeps telling us the human body is such a sukalpam. That's one of the best designed equipments which we have for us to reach moksha and to cross the sea of samsara. And if you look at the Upanishads clearly state in a few locations, it says, let Guru be your compass. When you see a sail sailing in the sea of samsara, as you can see in the picture behind, it says, let the Guru be your compass so you know which direction to go. And the God's blessing be the wind to steer your sail. So your sail is being pushed by a wind, which is the God's grace or the blessings. And you may wonder who the captain of the ship is. In Hinduism, the captain of the ship is you. You are responsible for your life. You steer your life. You are the source by which the life, you progress the life at your own speed. That is one of the reasons that when you look into Bhagavad-Gita as well, Bhagavad-Gita clearly states at the very end when Lord Krishna states at the very end that Arjuna, I've given you all the information and I've designed human being as one of the most perfect creatures. And you know what's right, what's wrong. You be the judge and you work according to it. So this is a very nice concept which we have very uniquely in our religion, where the guru acts as a compass and the God's blessings is a wind for us to steer, to sail. So when we come into the Purusharthas, some people call it goals, but a much more better word for the Purushartha is a purpose of a human being. The Purusharthas can be classified as four: the Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. Artha is where you seek security. Kama is enjoying pleasures. It could be any pleasures, something which you want to own, something which you want to eat, or a relationship which you want to have. And dharma is a careful living, or the dharmic values which gets ingrained in artha and kama. And the last step is a moksha, where you liberate from all these stuff. So once you start looking into this kind of a step-by-step perspective, you see the first goal in life would be your artha, your security, because you need to have something to base your life on. For that, you need some sort of a security, money, power, residence. Then it comes to your karma, your pleasure. What do you want to do? What do you want to desires? And how are you going to achieve it? It could be a relationship and all stuff. Then comes the secondary goal is the dharma, because dharma again comes and helps artha, and dharma is also the stepping stone for kama. Because without dharma, artha and kama can become adharmic, which you'll be looking at later. So artha, kama, and dharma, all these secondary goals will aid a person towards a primary goal, which is moksha, liberation. The liberation from the samsara, the bondage, the wheel of life. So this is how all the Purusharthas are getting linked. And in one of our earlier presentations, we looked at what is Purushartha. Purushartha is nothing but free will. So you have the free will to go and to seek artha, to seek dharma, and how to base these two on dharma. So that is how the free will is getting connected with Purushartha. So the law of samsara or the reincarnation, what happens is like once you're born, based on all the activities you do, all the actions you do, every action, if it is a good or a bad, will yield a good or a bad karma. So depending upon how much karmas we accumulate and the way we do it, it's a continual cycle of birth and rebirth. And when it happens to the moksha, that is a release from the samsara. And that is the time when the Advaitic principle tells us that, you get relieved either from a moksha, it could be a Videha Mukti or a Jivan Mukti. A Jivan Mukti happens when a person is still alive, and Videha Mukti happens when the person is dead. So that time when your Atma goes and merges with the Lord's, and that's how you reach moksha. So that is a principle, and this talks about the whole karma that happens within us every birth and in our subsequent births. So this is called the law of samsara or reincarnation. And the way it all happens is the first thing what we have in our mind are the vasanas. Each time we have some sort of vasanas, the vasanas will be inherent ones in Ada. It comes as desires in our intellectual stuff. Then these kind of desires happens in our intellect. Then we start thinking about it in our mind as thoughts, because mind is nothing but a collection of thoughts. So the mind keeps thinking about, I need to do this, I need to do this, I wish I had this, and those kind of things. You keep thinking about it, and finally it comes as action in your body level. So it emanates as desires from the intellect, goes as thoughts into the mind, and it comes into action into a body mind. And this is how the inherent vasanas that's ingrained in us comes out and unfurls as desires, thoughts, and actions. The intellect, mind, and body. So what happens here is this is a cyclical nature. The vasanas will come back with the desires, and the desires will lead us to thoughts, and the thoughts we will do actions. And since we keep doing the same actions, our vasanas are getting stronger and stronger. We keep continuing in the same cycle. And when we keep continuing in the same cycle, we are helpless. We get drowned in our own sorrows and the miseries and in the way of life and in the wheel of samsara.
Mhm.
So that is how the whole thing keeps going around and round. And the free will that happens is in the action level. So when you are acting on it, you always have the right, or you always have inputs from free will by which you can change the way you act. So based on the way you act, your vasanas gets reduced. So your desires gets reduced and your thoughts gets reduced and everything slowly reduces. So the intensity can be increased or reduced by free will, which affects an action. So this particular slide talks about that. So when you look at this stuff, right, what we said was any action, good or bad, will lead to bondage, and both will lead to karma. So good actions will have good karma, bad actions will have both bad karmas. So if you have to transcend the good and the bad actions, the only way we can do it is by transcending desires. Because desires will kick you to thoughts and the thoughts will force you to act. So the root cause here from the vasanas that's coming out is the desires. So we need to transcend the desires. So to control the desires, to transcend the desires, to reduce these kinds of passion that's in between us, how do we do it? That is what the Vedanta talks about, Vivekam and Vairagya. So there are no correct good explanations for these two words in English. So Vivekam can be closely translated as discernment or the right understanding. And Vairagyam can be explained as dispassion or detachment. So the law of karma, any actions which we do will have consequences. And it all depends upon the desires and the intentions and the fundamental law of nature, which we looked at it, the action, the reaction, the cause and the effect. And every action which we do will have a consequence. And the beauty is the same energy that is within us, that the energy that gives us the nourishment, the sustenance, the protection. It's the same energy that inspires us to break from the karmic shackles. So there's not separate individual who's helping us. It is happening from within us. So we are the tool. So we are the root cause of the problem, and we are also the solution to the problem. So once we look at symbolism too, right? When we go with a lot of people into Bhakti Marga, so our Hinduism is abound with lots of symbolism, and every symbolism has got a very beautiful meaning in as well. But what unfortunately happens is, like, we look into the Shabdartham, the word meaning of it. We look into the Vyakyartham, or the literal word by word meaning, and we try not to look into the subtle meanings that we are being given with. So for example, look at the photograph or the idol of Mahavishnu. Shangam, Chakram, Geda, Pangajam, Idivilasam, Nal, Trikkaigalodam. We keep chanting this in our evening time. What is this for divine items the Lord Mahavishnu has? He has the Shankar, the Panchajanyam, the Nada Brahmam. What does it do? It's a warning for us to understand it. So people from Bhakti Margam who are deeply into it should have these kind of clues to have an understanding that this is the significance of the symbolism between the Shankar. What is Chakram? Chakram is nothing but Sudarshanam, Sudarshanam, something that gives you the right perspective by which you can overcome the obstacles. And the Lord Vishnu's bottom left hand always carries a mace or a gada. What is it? The Kaumodagi gada. It is a punishment. What happens in the punishment? Because you'll be born again, your law of karma, the bad karmas, we keep accumulating it. Then comes the Padmam on his lower right hand, which in Bhagavatam is called Leela Kamalam. It's a blossoming of the spiritual consciousness within the individual. So once you start looking into this beautiful iconography and the symbolism that's been shown, and when you start to relate the Shankar, the Chakram, the Gada, and the Padmam, it totally adds in and gives you a very good meaning on the law of karma. It's about warning. It's giving you the right direction. Sudarshanam with your giving you tips on how to cross the obstacles. And if you don't do it, what is the punishment? And if you do it, if you abide by it, you are relieved from the constant birth and death, the law of samsara. And that is a blossoming of the spiritual consciousness within this individual. And the law of karma, any willful action which you do creates two phalams or the results. One is a drishtaphalam. That is something which you can perceive. For example, you're doing something in your exam, you do score a good mark. That is something which is tangible, which you can clearly see, which you get it immediately. The other thing is intangible one, something a little bit subtle. That's what in Sanskrit we call as adrishtaphalam. So the adrishtaphalam for every willful action you do has two parts. It could be a papam. The closest English meaning for that is a demerit. And that accumulates when you do a lot of adharma, or punyam, merits, which you get when you do a lot of dharma. So this is how the whole thing is classified in a Vedantic perspective. Then when you look at life, right, you say, okay, I had multiple births and multiple deaths, and I'm right here at the present. I had a huge past. I don't even know how many births I've taken, and I have a whole new future ahead of me, which I don't even know. It's an unborn future and it is a dead past. And I'm right now in the present time. So what do I have to do? So in that case, there's three kinds of karma that's being stipulated. These are the Sanchita Karma, Prarabdha Karma, and the Agami Karma. Agami Karma is also called as a Kriyamana Karma, but we will stick with the word Agami Karma. So Sanchita Karma is nothing but all the karmas which we have accumulated during all our past lives. That's Sanchita Karma. Prarabdha karma is a portion of the karma that's been given out to us for this particular life. When we are born till we die, what are all the good karmas and the bad karmas we can encounter? That's what we call it as a prarabdha karma. And the agami karma is all the actions which we are doing in the present life. All the things I'm doing right now, all the things I'm saying now, all the things I'm thinking about now, all will yield results in future. Those are called agami karma. So let's look at Sanchita Karma. You see, Sanchita Karma is the accumulated karma which we carry from our past lives. So imagine each karma is a one grain of rice, and look at the sacks and sacks of rice stacked on one above the other. That's our Sanchita Karma. That is the karma which we have accumulated in all our previous innumerable births. We keep accumulating, and every grain of rice, everything goes into a sack. It gets stacked one above the other, one above the other, one above the other. So this is sort of a pictographical representation to show how a Sanchita Karma looks like. And what is Prarabdha Karma? That is a karma which we are supposed to handle in this life form. When we are born now till we die, what are the things we need to do? That are the karma that's been given to us. That is only one bowl of rice. And imagine every grain of rice is one karma. It could be a bad karma or it could be a good karma. So from the sacks and sacks of rice which we have in Sanchita Karma, we are given with one bowl of rice for this particular life to deal with called Prarabdha Karma. That is one of the reasons, right? When we say our prarabdha karma is so small, it's only one minuscule part of our sanchita karma, and if you try to negate this life, or if you say, "Oh, can somebody take over my prarabdha karma?" The answer is no. You have been given this prarabdha karma, and nobody else can pitch in for you except you. You cannot give it to your wife, you cannot give it to your child, or you cannot subcontract it to a third person, or you cannot use a work share mechanism, give it to somebody else. Because this is our karma, we have to endure it. And that is why when Ratnakar, the Adikavi Valmiki, went and asked his wife, say, "Can you share my papa and punya?" They said no, because this is what you're being given with. This we have to endure in his life. That is one of the reasons that Hinduism, when they talk about suicides, they also say that it's futile to do it. Because the moment you take your own life, you're coming back again. And all the wonderful Sanchita Karma here are still going to be there. You're not running away from it. You're going to come back to this life. So handle the Prarabdha Karma. And how we handle it, we will talk about it in the next few slides. So this is a concept of Prarabdha Karma that we have in this lifetime. And what is Agami Karma? Agami karma is something which we do, right? Every action which we do right now, the things we say, the things we do, the things we intentionally or unintentionally do. So look at the stuff, right? It's a whole new field, paddy field, where all the rices are growing, right? On the right, you see, imagine you're doing all the good things. And on the left side, you see vast and vast areas of all the bad things. Imagine when all this paddy grows up and when it is harvested, the size of the sacks and the quantity of the sacks here in the Sanchita Karma will increase. And that is why we keep constantly showing this as a cyclical graph, because the Sanchita Karma gives you a small bit of Prarabdha Karma, and every action which we do in our life, Agami Karma takes you back and it gets stored in the Sanchita Karma as another couple of bags of rice. So this is a wonderful way of explaining the concept of Sanchita Karma, the prarabdha karma that we have in this particular life at this before we die, or the agami karma based on all the actions which we do. So this is how they're all interconnected. And what we need to know is the plants and the animals and all of the living organisms, they don't have access to the Sanchita Karma where they have bags and bags of rice. And it is said that they only have access to the Prarabdha Karma alone, that particular life. The reason is these animals, they are predetermined in the evolutionary path and they don't have a personal choice, as we saw in the first slide, right? So this is a whole cycle happens. And when we looked at the realized souls, right, all these realized souls, what happens is like, their Sanchita Karma, the sacks and sacks of bags of rice would have depleted. And the agami karma for them will be very minimal, because they will be doing all good things and good activities, and all they are left is a prarabdha karma that comes as a bowl. So what happens is, like, even though they suffer, because as you can see, a lot of good souls have suffered. For example, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa or Ramana Maharshi, they all had a lot of bodily aches and diseases, but they still continued it, saying that this is my prarabdham, I have to go through it. So that is the concept of the prarabdha karma. And similarly, right, when you, I'm not sure if you remember, my grandmom used to always say that, oh, please don't insult or speak bad about realized souls or gurus, because deva dosham and all stuff, right? So you will always wonder, why is it deva dosham, or why is it bad to speak bad of realized souls? So this is where our Vedantic concept says that, every future reaction, because all these realized souls, I'm not saying every saint is a realized soul, a lot of them are not, but whoever it is realized, if you're making fun of a realized soul, this realized soul does not have an agami karma. Or in other words, this realized soul will be doing all good things, and you won't have these kind of agami karma growing. So what happens in this stuff is, any future punyam that's been accumulated by a realized soul will go to the people who help those realized souls. And any papam or demerits that gets associated with this, when you keep harming someone by thought or action or word or deed, will come to you as papam. So that is one of the reasons our ancient people used to say deva dosham, to say bad about stuff. And also, when you look at the types of karma, the types of karma can be grouped into four. The nitya karma, which we have to do it every day. These are the daily obligatory duties which you are supposed to do. Then you have the naimitya karma. These are the occasional obligatory duties. For example, the shodasa samskaram, etc. Those come under the naimitya karma, because when a child is born, you're supposed to do certain things. When somebody's getting married, you're supposed to do. When there's a death in the family, you need to supposed to do something. So these are all the naimitya karmas, the occasional obligatory duties. So the nitya karma and the naimitya karma are the top two ones, or the two ones can be called as obligatory new duties, and both together are called as niyata karma. And it is a sin, according to our scriptures, not to do niyata karma. That is, you are supposed to do nitya karma, you're supposed to do naimitya karma, we are not supposed to miss them. Then the other karmas, which are papa karmas, are called as kamya karmas, which cannot be called as a fully termed as a papa karma. Kamya karma is something which you do to attain desired results. So it depends upon the intention and the results, what you're desiring, if it is a papam or punyam. So that is in the borderline case. And the other real karma, which our scriptures call them as the papa karma, is the nishiddha karma, something that's banned or forbidden, brahma hatyas and those kind of things, right? So these are all the four karmas. Nitya karma and naimitya karmas are the obligatory duties we have to do, and those are all classified as one. And the other ones you have is a kamya karma, the desired result which you do, and also the nishita karma. There's something different one as well, which is called prayashchita karma as well. So these are all the karmas which you do for the expiation of the sins, right? Something if that bad happens, you do a prayashchitam. So those are all the things. So when we come into the karma, the effects of karma and the results of karma can happen immediately, or it can be delayed by a few years, or it could be delayed by a few janmas as well. So it does not have to happen immediately. So that is one of the reasons you see people who have been done something bad in the previous janma suffering in this particular life, and some people who are doing all the notorious things living very wonderfully and exuberantly. And the intensity of the karmic effects depends on a lot of factors. There's an initial action which you plus do, plus there are other factors as well. And our scriptures state that it's an intention, motive, will, feelings, self-reformation, and divine grace. There are a lot of things that affects as well. So that is where the people in the Bhakti Marga always talks about, right? They talk about the divine grace or the grace of God, the Kripa, Bhagavan's Kripa, by which you can reduce the extent of karma to a considerable extent, Or even if you're not able to reduce it, it at least gives you the sufficient strength to endure. So that is where the grace of God comes in. And this is the importance of the bhakti and the sharanagati perspective on it. And also, as we said before, our wonderful human body is such a beautiful sukalpam, a upakaranam, the perfect instrument where we can direct the body and the mind towards bhakti and the intellect. And that is where the Atma Jnanam perspective comes into it. That is where we go and get into the knowledge. And what we also understand from this is our law of karma is not recorded in heaven or hell. Physically, there is no Chitraguptan sitting there next to Lord of Dharma or Kalan taking notes on what we did right and what we did wrong. Instead, it is all a memory imprint that happens of karma are all ingrained deep in our consciousness. And this is what is called as samskaras and the vasanas. Those are other terms which we'll discuss later because we are running short of time. And these memory prints or the latent impressions, it remains in our consciousness. And this goes along with us through the multiple births and deaths. And the only way we can remove them is by going through them or by having intense self-purification. So how do we do that? If we want to do some self, if we want to shape our life, how do we want to do a intense self-purification? We have a quick 6 steps, which has been popularly mentioned by Swami Chinmayananda. It's about the developing detachments, controlling desires, cultivating mental stability, good actions, devotion, and the complete surrender to God. So when we talk about the developing detachment, it's a beautiful word called asangoham. Asangoham is the unattachments where you remain as a silent witness. And this was promulgated by Adi Shankaracharya. And this is coming from the Brahma Jnanavali Mala. And it's a beautiful paragraph which says, Asangoham, Asangoham, Asangoham Puna Puna, Sachidananda Rupam Aham Evam Aveya. It basically means unattached am I, ever free from attachment of any kind. I am the existence consciousness bliss, the Satchidanandam, indestructible, ever changing, unattached am I. So when you understand this concept, the true liberation comes and it helps us to self-realize who we are and it helps us to get mukti from our cycle of births and deaths. So the proper attitude matters and the proper actions matters. In the proper actions, we need to make sure that we try to reduce our tamasic karmas as low as possible, increase a little bit of rajasic karmas depending upon your karma or the background or action that's been done, and increase sattvic karmas quite a lot. And when it comes back into the proper attitude, which you see on the slide now, what we do is we consecrate all the actions which we do to Ishvara. This is why the Bhagavad-Gita keeps telling us, whenever you do something, have the Ishvara Arpana Buddhi in mind, where you have a samatvam, a balanced mind. And whatever we do, have a prasada buddhi as well. With the prasada buddhi, you get prasannata because you accept results as a blessing from the God. With all this, naturally, the forgiveness, the love, the patience, the helping attitude, the responsibility, the gratefulness, the charity develops within us, and we end up becoming a better individual. And similarly, our mananam, dhyanam, nididhyasanam increases. And we start to do a much more better life. We start to do a lot of sattvic effects. We start going into the Panchamaha and all the stuff. And slowly we go towards the path of moksha. So the first step, what we said, is the chitta shuddhi, which is the mental purity. Then comes the chitta ekagrata, the single pointedness of the mind. Then the chitta naishchalyam, the steadiness of the mind. Once we have the single pointedness, we slowly get into the steady mind. And once we are on the steady mind, the self-knowledge part of it, the Atma Jnanam, comes into us. And when we perfect that, we reach salvation, which is nothing but moksha. So if you look at this one particular beautiful chart, it clearly shows us at the very bottom, you have the tamogunam, where you have the body and the in the senses, the jnanendriyam and the karmendriyam. And with the self-discipline and the asangoham, the unattachment, which we just said, we slowly go into the second one, where you go to the rajogunam, where you have the manas, the chittam, and the prana sense, right? Then you try to overcome that. Then you go into the sattvic mode. When you go into the sattvic mode, it's more like the intellect you have. At the bottom one, tamas is the body, and the rajogunam is the mind, and the sattva guna becomes the intellect. So once we know that, we are slowly crossing from all our negative to positive ones. We go into samatvam. Then comes the sthita prajna, because you are knowing the self, and slowly you go behind it. You go behind your body, your mind, and the intellect, and you know, and you slowly go out from this duality. Then you realize you are nothing but the Sachidananda Brahman. Then you go and understand the true meaning and the true reason behind your birth. Then you merge with the Lord. And everything is linked as well with the Kundalini chakras too. At the very bottom, the chakra, what you see is a Mooladharam, where you use the body's level, right? Then it comes the Rajogunam, when you overcome it, is Swadhisthana. Then it comes the Sattva Gunam, where you cross into the Manipuraha, the chakra number 3. Then you go to the Samatva level, where you go into Anahatam. Then you go to the Siddha Prajna, the Vishuddhi, the chakra 5. Then you go into cross and you know your real self, where you are between the eyebrows. You look at chakra 6, the Ajna. Then you finally get into the 7th chakra, the Sahasrara. So from Mooladharam, you're progressing towards Sahasrara. This is what in our Sandhya Namam we keep saying, right? Padiyaram kadanna vide chellumbol Shivane Kanagam Shivishambho. Because you're crossing all the 6 steps from Mooladharam all the way to Sahasraram. Mooladharam is a store point of Shakti. Sahasraram is a store point of Shiva. So it's a Shiva Shakti Aikyam. That is where you merge. Then you realize. You pull out yourself from the karmic bondage. Then you realize the Lord and you merge with the Lord. So this is a very wonderful concept of a beautifully how the BMI chart for Swami Chimyananda clearly describes is been shown. And I had a few other stories as well, but I'm not sure if I have time to go through it because the time now is 8:55. Because I had a very nice story to share with you on the Mahabharata, on the Sorgarohana Parva, and also on the story about Danavir Karna. Because, I'll quickly mention this, try to keep it with a minute or two. Because, when you see the story of Karna, when you see the Tamil movie or any other movies, right, where Shivaji Ganeshan acts as Karna, and at the very end, his chariot gets stuck. And Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, hold on, let me go and ask Karna something. Then Lord Krishna runs to Karna and say, hey, Danavir Karna, can you donate all the punyams which you have gathered so far? And the Danavir Karna gives everything to Lord Krishna. At the minute when I was watching this movie, when I was a little kid, a toddler back in Tamil Nadu, it didn't dawn at me yet. Why was Lord doing it? Then you start looking into the Mahabharata. When you start reading Mahabharata, you realize that Karna was born as Dambodhva because he was as a Sahasra Kavacham. And he had 1,000 kavachams, and he had to, somebody who could do 1,000 years of penance and who's a Nara Narayana could come and kill him. The Nara Narayana is the Vishnu, and the Nara is nothing but the Arjuna. This concept happens 999 times, and finally Karna is born as Kunti's son, and Adhirathan and Radha looks after him, and Krishna sends Indra, the father of Arjuna, to go and get the kavacham from Karna. When everything is done, when you want to kill, it has to make sure that there are no balances, because Karna has done so much of good things. So there will always be some good merits in us. So he may have to come back to this life to be born again. Whereas Lord Krishna wants to give him mukti, because for the Sahasra Kavacham, this is his 1,000th birth. So after this, he does not have to be born again. So to make sure that this bank account is nil, Krishna goes and gets the merits which Karna has done. So it took me a few years to realize the whole concept. And once I start looking into the karmic theory of perspective, it made complete sense. So coming back to the slide, which we said, right? Now, when we look and read this one, it makes quite a lot of meaning and sense to us. When a bird is alive, it eats ants. When the bird is dead, ants eat the bird. Time and circumstances can change at any time. Don't devalue or hurt anyone in life. You may be powerful today, but remember, time is more powerful than you. So be good, do good. And that ends my presentation. I took around 54 minutes, so I will end it here. And I'll quickly open up for any questions you may have. If you have any suggestions or comments, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shaji. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shaji.
Shaji.
It was excellent talk. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaji. It's an excellent presentation. It's a very tough topic.
Thank you, Shaji.
It's so clear.
Anytime. Thank you. So yeah.
This was an enlightening speech, Shaji. It was great listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shaji.
Absolutely,
Excellent
it's a pleasure
presentation.
to listen to you, Shaji. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shaji.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Look forward for the next talk.
Thank you, Shaji.
Excellent talk, Shaji ji.
No, thank
Very-
you, G. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaji. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaji ji. Every word is amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. It was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
At least we
Well
came.
delivered, Shaji. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
you,
much, Shaji. Yeah, we came to know karma is in our hands. That's very,
true.
very nice to know.
Yeah. Because these are often misquoted words which you hear all around, floating all around the news media and the newspapers and the books and what you hear around, right? So I thought maybe I'll give a direct.
Yeah,
Shaji
I
ji,
think
I really like the pictorial presentation for the Sanchita Karma.
No, the credit goes to Chinmay Ashram because my gurus taught me this and they shared it. And when I looked at it, then it dawned upon me that this is such a simple concept.
Yeah,
So,
very.
yeah, everything what I've shown today, what I've read is all what Chinmay Ashram, Swami Chinmayananda and his disciples have taught us me. So the whole credit goes to them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shaji ji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, Shaji ji. Very good presentation, Siddharth. Yeah.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you so much. So good night to you all. Shubhratri. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for connecting. Thank you so much.